Hi, it's the 2nd of October 2014. Just been sitting there thinking about this, and I thought, might be a good idea just to put it in a video. Share these thoughts with you guys. What do you think humanity is waiting for? Little pause there, just to ever think about what I'm thinking. Those thoughts. Okay. I was watching the news today. I see protesting in Hong Kong, in more than one place in Europe, recent protests in the United Kingdom, in America, all over the world. And what is the problem that the world is sharing at the moment? What's happened? And it's not just happened in one country, it's happened in all. And I got to think about the economy, how we go around things, how we obtain money in this system. And I think it's the monetary system that, I've said it before, the monetary system's already failed, it's stagnated, and those that have the most to lose, those with the majority of the money and what that money can do for them in their life, have the most to lose. And it just so happens that these people have influence on governments. Now, they're never going to, and you know this, they're never going to influence a government with their money to change the monetary system to something else, because the moment they do that, in a flash, they lose all the entitlements that they've got. And that's why it is being underpinned in the manner in which it is right now. They're failing to take the next step in evolution in the way we conduct ourselves on this planet. And I tell you now, I could set up a business tomorrow, right, dealing with solutions for companies, with integrating technology further into those companies. Let me just give you an example. We know that McDonald's is, a very large employee of a lot of people. It's got a big workforce there. Thousands and thousands of people work for McDonald's. But I could go into McDonald's and just look at what they're doing, and look at, say they had, let's say if they've got 20 different recipes to produce a certain burger, chicken mayo, Big Mac, a cheeseburger, and then you've got your breakfast things as well, and they come with fries and shakes and that. Well, I could take every item that McDonald's sells, and I could mechanise that process and remove that person's job. And I tell you now, the technology already exists for this. I'm talking about, you pull up through the drive-through, you use a touchscreen monitor to select what you want, you do away with the person that takes your order, right? You hold your cash out, slide it into the machine, similar to what they do in the supermarkets now. It takes the money into the machine, it gives you your change, and your order is on its way. Now, I could replace all the chefs in McDonald's with mechanisms, right, or actuation systems, or simple robotics, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know how to cook a quarter pound of beef that is a certain size on both sides perfectly. And I would have an actuation system. Once it had cooked halfway through, it would flip it over and cook it halfway through again. And I tell you what else this would do, it would make the burger perfectly cooked every single time, because we could have stuff like infrared temperature gauges that detect at the point that the meat is cooked halfway through the one side, and it flips it and it says overcooking. So we eliminate human error in the process. And I could do that with the milkshakes, with every single recipe that McDonald's does. I could fully itemise McDonald's, and there wouldn't need to be even one person there. But you know what, if you are the sort of person that likes to put a parachute on when you get on a plane, then we could just leave an overseer in there that could handle a given problem should it ever arise. But you wouldn't need it. And that's what I'm talking about. I could go through every single factory and I could mechanise every single factory and every single process that we've got a human being doing right now. And the point is, guys, is that this is what's happening. And this has been happening for 20 years. And the problem is that over the last 20 years, it's been going on for a lot longer than that. I mean, we've had computers now. Well, I remember computers when I was a wee lad, 5 years old, something like that, you know, or I think I was about 7. Do you remember the ZX Spectrums and the Oracles and the BBCs and the Texas Instruments? Do you remember those with the little tape recorders? Well, we've had the technology since then. We've been using these things, and they've been putting people out of jobs since then. There used to be paperwork clerks. Now you don't have that because all the paperwork is stored on a hard drive. So computers and technology have been removing the labour-intensive workforce people out of those industries. But the biggest problem is we are expanding population every year. Year in, year out, we expand. So we're adding more people into the workforce, and we've got this thing chopping away at the jobs at the workforce. And this thing that's chopping away is the technological advancements and the robotics and the actuation systems that we put into, you know, work environments. There's a big problem with this. The big problem is a human being in this system needs access to money. And this isn't rocket science. Children understand this. How you get money is by going to work. You do a day's work, that turns into a week's work, it turns into a month's work, you get your paycheck, and you can participate then in the monetary system how you please. For most people, you know, you take that money back to your house, you pay your electricity bill, your gas bills, your food bills, your TV, you pay for your internet, you pay for all those sorts of bills, your water bills and your mortgage, your car repayments, etc, etc. But the thing is, with jobs reducing every single day because of people that have the ability, like myself, to look at a situation and overcome the problem, right? And the reason why we would call it a problem, and this is exactly how CEOs look at problems, they say, how can we become more profitable? Because that's what they're in it in the first place for. They're in it for profit. So how do we make it more profitable? Well, we can't. You know, we can't buy the meat any cheaper than what we are. Can't buy the vegetables any cheaper than what we are. We can't buy, you know, the cream that we make the milkshakes with any cheaper than what we are. And the electricity of the place, everything is AAA rated. So we cannot make this process any cheaper other than reducing the labour. And we can do that in two ways. We can take a look at the wages and we can reduce the wages, or we can insert robotics to do certain jobs. That's the only two ways. And the reason why they want to make more profit is for two reasons. Not just making more profit, but they want to deliver a product cheaper. So first of all, if you've done away with one of the staff, you're going to reduce that staff's wages, and also you're going to be able to probably pass that on to your customer, and it might be a price barrier with your customers. The reason why they want to shop with you, if you two burger shops next door to each other and one does one cheaper, you're probably going to go to them because the price fits your budget, unless quality is another thing, but that's another subject entirely. But I think you get the point. What I'm trying to explain to you is, this is where we are. This is why, you know, there is so many problems in the world and they're not going addressed. And don't tell me for 1 minute that these world leaders don't understand that this is a problem that needs to be looked at. Because if they keep, you know, disregarding this problem, and you don't give either a person a job or an adequate subsidy, and you noticed I said subsidies because that is what you should do if you cannot give a human being a job, you should subsidise that human being with credits, with money, so that they can still participate, right, as anyone else in this society equally. There should be an equality level of life that everybody is entitled to. And there is no one on this planet that is more entitled to something than another. We have an equal birthright on this planet when we're brought here, or we're placed here as spirits into vehicles, the body, and no one has a more entitlement than anybody else. It needs to change, guys. This is a problem that needs to change, because we are destroying the next generations that come. We're depressing them. They can't participate in this monetary system. They're not getting any subsidies or benefits if they can't get work. Some of them are leaving university with thousands of pounds worth of education costs, and they can't get a job that will even entitle them to afford to live in this system that we're now in. They can't afford their own place, they can't afford a car, because they're being exploited worse than ever. I mean, insurance companies, look how much they charge the children to drive. I mean, they've always been extortionate, but I've never known an insurance company hit kids so much as what they are. £3,000 on average for the lowest horsepower cars we have in the UK, for instance. There's just a benchmark, and they can't afford to get their own place. They're living with the parents, still into the 30s, and you've got to look at it. If you get a 25-year mortgage, if you do manage to sort yourself out at some point in your 30s with a job that is paying well, with this capitalist system encouraging competition so that they have to keep reducing the prices down all the time, how long are you going to keep a job? What security have you got? This isn't like what it was back in the 40s, where things were, or after, let's say, the 1950s, where things were great. My father tells me, it wasn't like this. I could walk in a job, right, on the morning, and if I didn't like that job, I'd be out of that job on the afternoon break, and by the time the end of the day come, I'd be in another factory, or I'd be somewhere else, and I'd be doing another job. There was people crying out for work back then. It's not like that now. We're all confronted with agencies that take a chunk out of your salary. They want your hourly work. They want to take a proportion out of your labour for that hour, and it's not guaranteed that even after a period of time, say of 3 months, that you'll get that job. And if you do, what sort of job is it going to be? Is it going to be a contract with it? You see, this is all the things that was never even thought about back in the day. Back in the 50s, if you took out a mortgage, you very likely did have a job for life, or at least till the time or period of the mortgage coming to an end. Now you don't. And there has never been today as much hyperinflation as there has been back in those days. So, for those reasons, those guys that was being brought up in them times, had a bit of a fair crack at the whip than what these kids are getting now. What I'm saying is, right, we are forcing our future generations into slavery and to accept minimum wage as a normality, because this is it. The employees know there is a ocean of labourers out there, or professionals with the quality skills, and they know they can pay or get away with paying a fraction of the cost of what really they should be paying. And this has got to stop, because from this point on, it is only going to get worse, because there are going to be people like me come along that know how to look at a situation, right, and convert that into a remedy by integrating technology, actuation systems and robotics into it. I mean, look at it. Every job's going to go soon. In the next 5 years, Google and its subsidiary companies will have created a robot. And as soon as they do, it will be like the first mobile phone. This thing's going to look ugly, right? But if you remember those phones that you used to walk around with a car battery 20 years ago, and now compare it with what you have today, the iPhone 6, you're going to know that it isn't going to be long for these robots to look like this, and the capabilities of these robots is going to fly off in, off the chart. It's going to exponentially accelerate up there to almost to the point, excuse me for that, almost to the point where it will be almost indistinguishable, right? When you look at these robots, they will look very much like droids. What I'm talking about, what you see on Star Trek, Data, it will look very much like that, and they will do the jobs of humans even more so. So what do we do? Can you imagine now if I had a time machine and I clicked the button to start, and we flew up into 30 years time? What jobs are going to be available for people in 30 years time? You see, this is what I'm saying. Our world leaders need to be thinking now about this, because in 30 years time there's going to be very little jobs for people, because employees will be employing robots. You won't have the clunky mechanisms flipping burgers like that you had in 5 years time. You're going to have a droid flipping burgers. He's going to be a supercomputer. He's going to have the ability to dial up phone numbers in his head and consult with head office instantly over simple problems. In fact, when he does it, he won't be talking to head office, he'll be talking to this mother mainframe, right, which is probably electronic CEOs on a board of, not on a table anymore, but in somewhere like a cloud. You can imagine it, can't you? And what I'm saying is the human interaction and the human labour force will be gone in 30 years. And we need to start changing the system now, right? Because we are destroying future generations through not already, cradling them in a system that if they cannot get a job, right, it is no longer forced on them that they take a zero paid job, really, or a low paid job, or an unfunctionable paid job. Let's call it that, because that's what it is. These kids can't function with the salaries that they get because of how much rent costs, how much mortgages cost, how much utilities cost, and food and whatever else. They can't function on these salaries, but it's going unrecognised. That's the point. They are as entitled as anybody else on this planet to the resources, and they're being barred, and it's being done very harshly and very meanly. And it's not just kids, by the way. I'm talking about, should you, after you have given your entire life's work to society, right, end up with nothing? Should anyone find themselves in a situation where they end up with nothing? I'm talking about, I've seen it happen. I've seen people separate. The argument's been caused through lack of money in the household, and they've separated over those arguments related to money, right? And then they've had a bit of equity in the house, which has been gobbled up by the solicitors, and they're left at 50 years old, right, having to start completely from scratch with absolutely nothing, through them having to move and not being able to afford, because it's totally been a life destroyer for them. There's been no safety net there for them. We can put you back on the road, and it's very hard for a human being to go through such an experience where all their life, right, they've worked hard, and to sit down and say to themselves, I've got nothing to show for all that hard work. I was the one that went into work even when I had a cold. I was the one that when I weren't even feeling right, I was still there, and now I have absolutely nothing. This is the sort of thing that can happen and is happening. Some people say you're one redundancy away from bankruptcy, or you're one paycheck away from bankruptcy. And it's the God's honest truth, guys. This is what's happening in our society today, and this is what needs to change. It's a very sad reality, and the facts of this matter is we need to do away with this monetary system now, because 30 years time we'll have done it already. So now, instead of all these meanities and these mean tests and these things, because we're going to look back on this in 30 years time and we're going to say that was abuse. That was abuse to humanity across a global scale, what was going on then, because nobody was giving these people even a livable subsidy. And you noticed I'm calling it subsidies, and the only reason I'm calling it subsidies is because I hate the word benefits. Right? It's a subsidy. Now, you know, people should have subsidies. The governments in the United Kingdom recognise subsidies for farmers. If they don't want them to produce cattle, they subsidise them so that imports can, take that role. Now, why can't they, in the same way they subsidise farmers, subsidise these people, right, that are on the waiting lists for jobs? Why can't they do that? And I'm not talking bare minimum, right? I hate the crap that they come out with. We have to leave an incentive there for people to work, otherwise they won't. That's bullshit. I've got to say, that's bullshit. People want to work. Nobody wants to sit in a house and watch the clock tick every single second as it goes round the clock face, because I've had jobs which have been like that, when there's been nothing at all to do and you've swept all up the place. These are the things you do when if you're one of these people that can't sit there and just doze off, or you can't twiddle your thumbs and be happy for hours on end. I'm one of these people that go around doing all these stupid little jobs, like I'll go and wash the cups up, I'll go and if there's a kettle there, I'll put the kettle on, I'll go and check the stock, things like that. You just do it naturally. If you sit there and watch the clock, believe me, you'll see how an hour can last a day. You'll see how a day can last a week, and you physically start to feel sick. That's the way I am, and I'm always, my mind's got to be thinking. I've got to be doing something. I very rarely just sit there and do nothing. But what I'm saying is, people are like that. They would rather work so that the day goes quicker, so that they can get home to their loved ones and enjoy that quality time. That's when we want the day to go slower. But we've got to do something about it, guys. This has to be first of all widely accepted that it is going to go that way in the future. And let's face it, Google are throwing billions of pounds into robotics at the moment, and actuation systems and technology. We're going to have these droids, whether you like it or not. It's just when it gets to that point, if it's not going to, we're not going to have people working as much as what we have in this day and age. I'm hoping, right, that by that time that comes, we've got a chunk of our daily time, right, for our family, and we've got a chunk of our daily time to start dissolving back into those real things that humans should be doing. Let's get in touch with our spiritual side. That's what I want to see humanity go to. And I tell you something else, guys, we've got a lot of we're just new kids on the block on this planet. We haven't really started to discover what's out there. I was watching a video today with that guy who's got X Space, forget his name now, but I was watching it, him talk about, he said, fuck Earth. He says, Mars, there's the future. He says, I want to colonize Mars. Well, as soon as Doppler and the other companies that Google own build these droids, we can start sending these droids there, and we can colonize that planet. We can terraform that planet and make it a livable planet. and then that will be just the first place, because once we've got a base there, we can manufacture things there, we can get the environment ready for us to go there, and then it's just a case of hopping from there to the next planet, to the next solar system, and we're off. We are Star Trek star children, and we're exploring. And I tell you, by the time we get to things like that, and we look back at history in these times today, we'll look back and we'll say, how did we ever live and expect others to live like that? This is why it's got to start. These changes have got to start, and they've got to start today. The new world orderists and the elitists have just got to shut the F up about what they're going on about, because this will naturally happen anyhow. The world will naturally form together. I mean, we already realise that we're all humans and we're all on the same planet anyhow, and as long as they stop poking their fingers in it, in these different situations and inflaming situations like they are in the Middle East over resources and things like that, the better we'll be off. We'll naturally merge together. I guarantee you that on this planet. You know what? They're chasing something. They're trying to reinvent the wheel, if you ask me. They're talking about creating a new world order. Are you kidding me? There's only one world. We're all on it, right? So there's already a world order. We just need to put our differences aside, work together. Like I said, I'm no more entitled to the resources on this planet than anyone else, and that goes for everybody else. This is our birthright. We've got to stop putting money before environments. We've got to stop putting money before all this deforestation, all this oil that we're pumping out. I mean, Gazprom need a spank on the arse, really, because it is right what they're saying about the North Sea oil, that it is so risky that if they do cause a spill under the ice pack, because of seasonal ice spreading, it could quite easily take that long to put it out. Now, how much damage would we have caused if we're pumping out oil uncontrollably under the ice caps for 6 to 12 months until we can get back there to have a look at the situation? It's a pristine environment, or it was a pristine environment, the most pristine environment on the planet, and that could see the end of it. We've got to stop this greed and chasing the money, and what we've got to do, it's like I've said in videos before, we have got to stop and think what is right, and we've got to act on that, even if it means we're going to lose everything in our pockets. Because if you had that safety net where even if you lost everything in your pocket, there will be a safety net for everyone on this planet, then you have nothing to lose by doing a wrong when you know it is a wrong, just for the sake of money and greed and wealth. What I'm talking about is this monetary system has stagnated. That's why we're seeing all this trouble in the world. And I think, if people just, considered equality, then I think we would be on the road, a rapid road to going somewhere as a species. We are, at the moment, terrible stewards on this planet with the way we're treating it. I mean, you wouldn't employ us with our track record to look after a planet. And you guys know that. What we've got to do is we've got to force these governments to accept the fact that in the future there is no unemployment benefit, there isn't forced labour. You ain't going to get no money if you don't go to work. That stuff's got to go, right? Because the way we're advancing with technology, it's gonna balance out in the future. People, like I said, don't want to sit in the house doing nothing anyhow. I think that a lot of these people that are retired, and you see this a lot in America, and I like this, these old guys and girls, they still get out and do a day's work. And that's fantastic. Because they don't want to, just because they've reached retirement age, sit in an armchair in front of the TV, drawling, because they know that's what would happen to them. They want to get out there and experience. They still want to be part of society. They still want to work, and a lot of them would do it for nothing. If they didn't have need the means for the labour, a lot of them would do it for nothing. But what we need is someone to look at the system, look at what is a reasonable standard of life, right? And for those millions of people that are getting treated absolutely inhumane, to be given a livable amount of money that enables them to participate as an equal in this monetary system, and not as what is portrayed: a vagabond, a peasant, and a tramp. That's totally wrong, and that has to go. Everyone should be entitled, especially in the United Kingdom, everyone should be entitled to a roof over their head, an amount of money that just doesn't cover survival, right? Give you enough to go down to the cheapest, crappiest shop to eat the most junkiest food. It should entitle them that, it should allow them that if they choose to want to buy organic, and even though it is more to buy organic, that they should be allowed to, they should have the funds to do it. They should have the funds to take their children on holiday and clothe them, right, in a manner that they don't stand out in a school playground because they look poor, right? That shouldn't be allowed to happen. What should be allowed to happen is a more role in society where equality is demonstrated and not just talked about. Guys, I feel like I've gone on a little bit here. I hope you've enjoyed the the topic, because I think you'll agree it's online with what is happening and what is to happen in the not too distant future, and it's just a matter of whether we want to push this now. And I think if they're too dumb to see this, right, then we should push it now. And if they are refusing still to accept this fact that it's going to end up like this anyhow, then they refuse to accept this now, they need to be pushed out. They need to go. We need a new system, and we need it 10 years ago. And this suffering, with these kids that can't get jobs, needs to stop right now, because we shouldn't just, because they've not got a job, or there isn't the jobs there anymore, because there just simply isn't there. I could resolve this problem in a couple of ways. I could just ban imports to this country, right? Or raise import duties to this country through the roof, right, so that it would deter China and all these other countries that abuse other people's labour and pay them nothing to do these things. They would never want to send it to the UK, and the only way we would get what we want in the UK is by paying, someone in the UK to work to build that job. That's one way of tackling this problem, but it's not the right way to tackle the problem. The right way is to work with technological advancements. You know what? Just look at the farming industry. I know I'm going on, but I'm just going to use this last example, as an example of how things have changed. Look at the farming industry. Farming used to employ more people. It used to be the biggest employers, when they used to use hoes and things like that to do the work. That now farms are very lonely places. The farmer and his small family can look after it. Their tractors can pull, larger ploughs, larger hoes, larger tiddles, and whatever they are that sort the soils out. They've even got seeders that put the seeds in. They've got sprayers, and you know what, guys? They've got autopilots where you can switch over, and it will be driven around the field more efficiently on GPS than it would if it was being driven by the farmer himself. There's an example of how we've come. So that farmer now, with the use of his high-tech equipment, can be more efficient, less labour intensive. And I think if we just use that as the example of the way things are going with everything, and the example I give about McDonald's and making that all itemised, because I could do it tomorrow if that's what McDonald's want to do, I'll do it, and you know what, it's only because that is what's going to happen anyhow, and that will put thousands and hundreds of thousands, I think, work for McDonald's, and there's about 20, 30, 40,000 probably. It's got a large workforce anyhow, right? But I could itemise, fully mechanise McDonald's tomorrow, or I could, within about 3 months, I'd have each one of their recipes being knocked out by robots, and the systems are already in place to take your money. The touch screens are there. It can happen. So just like the farmer is now less labour intensive because of his equipment is improved, that is the way everything is going to go. It's inevitable. What we need to do is convince these world leaders that that is the case, right? Yes, we know you've got millions of pounds. You was really having an entitlement that you shouldn't really have had in any case. You should never have been allowed to have that sort of money, because by doing that you drained it out of the economy. And that's why shops go bankrupt, because when someone takes a large amount of money out of the economy and it goes into one bank account or 10 bank accounts, well, there's not a lot being traded about. So for more than one reason, you shouldn't have had it in the first place. Now it's time to come back down out the clouds and put your feet on the ground and be, on the level terrain with us all. Yeah, that's equality. Right, you're never going to get equality with, I'm afraid, a capitalist system. So, guys, I'm pretty sure we can carry on all night on this subject, but I won't for your sakes. I hope you found the conversation, or this debate, or this blog, or whatever it was you want to call it, enjoyable. Dare I mention the link? Well, I've mentioned it, haven't I now? So, there's a link down there if you want to support this channel, for whatever reason you want to support it. It's there. Let's just say that. Not many people do these days, but it hasn't stopped me, has it? Knocking the videos out and still talking about these subjects. I'm going to try as well, guys, because I don't think it's good for our spirits to keep going on about this dull and dreary subject of end times and things like that. That needs to go. I think we need to focus on the future and making changes. If we can make the changes today and make a world better for those that come tomorrow, we've done our jobs, and we can say we've done them well. And with that, guys, I'm going to say what I usually do. Bye for now.